Did y'all really think that I would miss out on reviewing this masterpiece of a show so far? First and foremost, I want to apologize that I have not been uploading recently the past 2 days because I've been super busy doing some other projects on the side. But yeah, I'm trying to get back into doing these things. But man, we gotta talk about this though. I feel like I should have done this way earlier. I should have done it really last night because I watched it. Because we're gonna drop it usually they drop it at 3 in the morning, but they dropped it early. I think it was like 9ish, I think, or 7. I think it was 8 or 9, but still. So this is my review on episode 1 and 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So spoiler warning, I'm about to go into this, a lot of spoilers. I do really love how the beginning of this episode, the first one, we start out with the younglings, and I really thought it was about to get dark for a couple minutes or a couple seconds because we start with the younglings. And you know, if you've seen Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, you know how that plays out. So I was like, are they going to show this the first episode? But I'm like, all right, so they're setting, basically ends the kids running off after their teacher gets killed by the clones, and, you know, setting up, I think maybe that I can't remember her name exactly, but the Inquisitor that has a real hatred for Obi-Wan, I feel like she maybe might have been the Jedi, one of the younglings. So watching the Clone Wars and also been a big fan of Rebels, seeing the Grandmaster, Inquisitor, and all the Inquisitors there on live action. I'm not really on board how he looks on live action, but I'm willing to set that aside and still enjoy his performance. First episode for me was really cool. Really awesome, really, seeing Obi-Wan. It felt like an Old Man Logan type episode where, you know, old man Obi-Wan kind of seeing how he's living his day-to-day life and trying to stay on the low, especially with the Inquisitor showing up, and then and then eventually setting off to go save Leia. I wasn't expecting to see Leia in this whole series, but as soon as we saw Leia, I was like, okay, I know where we're going with this. In episode 2, I can just ease it up, man. I really enjoyed the whole relationship between Obi-Wan and Leia. I know this is supposed to be one limited season series, but man, I do wish we probably could get more of that. The whole, like, on the run kind of gave me some Last of Us vibes for Star Wars kind of version of it. And I liked how very street smart for Star Wars standard is Obi-Wan is, and how that he's a real badass. If you remove the rules of Jedi rules, he's a badass. Love the first 2 episodes. I'll give it an 8.8 out of 10. Well, hello there. Welcome to episode 3 review of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this episode for me feels a little bit like Logan and The Last of Us Star Wars version. We start to see Kenobi kind of really open up to Leia, and also I think I've been seeing a lot of hate towards like Reva. I want to address that real quick. Like, you're not a Star Wars fan if you're completely racist and a bigot and just sending death threats because you didn't like the character, or the fact that that she is a black actress killing this role and you didn't like it. Now it's okay, you can have an objective opinion, but if you're racist and completely just hateful, you're not a Star Wars fan. You're just scum. You're just the worst part of humanity's got to offer, and you're not part of that fan base. And I will proudly gatekeep over that. But back to this episode, I really love the actress that's playing little Leia. Young Leia. I think I love her character, or love her performance for the legendary Leia Organa. And I like how we kind of see the turn for Obi-Wan, kind of being this, you know, rusty, doesn't want to face the, kind of like what Luke was, but in a, you know, done very more respectfully. But you see that not unravel, but kind of like that turn back to the old Obi-Wan that we know. Especially at the end when Darth Vader shows up at the small town that Obi and Leia are hiding, trying to get to the transportation, and Darth Vader the voice itself was just eerie, the fear, just the darkness, that just everyone just screaming, the town screaming, and you can just hear the footsteps were menaced. The only time I can think that was just like that is maybe when Bane showed up in Cook of Bane and I think it was Boba Fett. No, Mandalorian. I think it was Boba Fett. Season 1. Correct me if I'm wrong. But man, the long-awaited fight. I don't think this is the final fight. I can't wait for the big final fight they have right before New Hope, the one they kind of quote or nod to. Even when Obi-Wan's trying to run away from Vader, it's showing that he's still not ready to be Obi-Wan. He's still Ben, and he'll still be Ben, but not facing the Force and just running from the Force, but running from his past, and that's Darth Vader. And Darth Vader getting his kind of somewhat revenge, trying to hold him up and then bring him down in the fire, kind of like how he did Mustafar with Anakin. Freaking love this episode. I'll give it an 8.8 out of 10. So here are my thoughts and review on episode 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. For me, this episode really felt like a filler, but there was this one scene in this whole episode that I freaking loved and kind of wish we had more of in this whole series. And I've been hearing rumors that they're going to do a season 2, but I do feel like maybe this should have been a movie. I mean, here's my thing. I kind of wish, and I saw someone bring this up on another TikTok, but when Obi-Wan was in that bacta tank, and kind of, with Vader and Obi-Wan kind of their tanks and that whole, the breathing, the Darth Vader breathe he does and that sound. And I kind of wish we kind of maybe in that moment when they kept flashing back and forth to them in their fight from last episode, I kind of wish we maybe got a callback to Obi-Wan remembering maybe a good time about him and Anakin back maybe in the Clone Wars, or even maybe before episode 3 or before even the Clone Wars started, just something to maybe a callback. I feel like Hayden Christensen, like with all the promoting they did for him, for this series, and we kind of maybe got literally one shot of him like from a distance, and maybe him in the bacta tank. But other than that, I mean, I feel like, and I'm not saying this is the show for good. Like I'm still waiting now for episode 5 and 6 and see how they play out. But for so far, I mean, I loved episode 1 and 2, 3. I loved at the end of episode 3. I loved. I mean, it was all right. It wasn't compared to 1 and 2, but for me, I mean, except for the end of the episode 3. But here's the scene I was talking about earlier. As soon as they leave, Obi-Wan and young Leia and the little rebels they have, they leave, and we go immediately into that scene of Vader just pissed off, just walking very aggressively towards Reva, and just using the Force and just using his power and might and his anger. And I was like, yes, I want more of this. I want that Vader. I want more of this Vader. Kind of hoping maybe we got like a little Vader series, but I understand that kind of be like, well, you might as well be calling it episode 3.5, or I don't know, just it wouldn't fit well. I give this episode a 7.6 out of 10.
Well, hello there. Welcome to my review of Obi-Wan Kenobi episode 5. And may the Force be with you. Look, I know there's been tons of debate, especially around Soups and his recent reviews on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Me personally, I don't think a cameo makes or breaks a movie or TV show. But, I respect his reviews and opinion. I mean, he had some solid reviews. Like, for me personally, I enjoyed this show, but it could have been way better executed. I just feel like the plot sometimes can lose itself and forget some of the plot points that were set up, or things that needed to be paid off, but didn't get paid off. And yes, I know the show's not done yet, but we're going into episode 6. I know I hear it's like an hour and a half long, but it's just some of the things I don't know, just some of the payoffs just didn't either it didn't happen, like things that you have in your story. If you have a story plot or a side plot or something that you set up in the show, and we knowingly know this is only going to be a limited series, we don't know if the season 2 is coming or not, but if this is a limited series, then it needs to be tied up, or paid off, or some sort of answer to that plot point. I mean, the score overall, like, I'm only saying this because we're kind of like in our second to last episode. I'm not been a big fan of the score. I did like the score in episode 1 and 2, but for the most part of this show, and see, the score of any Star Wars entertainment should be the top notch of it all, because that's Star Wars. Like, John Williams. I know this ain't John Williams, but again, come on. I have to say though, and I don't like to bring in Marvel stuff into Star Wars stuff, but I've seen a lot of people, say they can't justify Scarlet Witch or Wanda's actions in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness because all the killing spree she did. No pun intended, the cinema spree, but but here's the thing. We literally had a reminder in this episode that how much Anakin was a freaking monster, how he would kill younglings, that he literally stabbed Reva as a youngin' when she was young, but managed not to die, and it looks like she doesn't die in this episode either. But but we can justify Anakin's actions. And I understand it's a tragic story, and sorry for cutting me off, but come on, come on, the hypocrisy is crazy. But I do think the acting is really executed well, and I think that's what saves the show. And some of the story plots and beats do save the show. I'll give it a 7.3 out of 10. Thank you for watching.
So here's my review of Obi-Wan Episode 6, the final episode of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So before I get to the big battle between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, I want to say some things about Reva and what I think about the character for this whole series. There were some episodes for me for Reva were hit and miss. I feel like her character didn't have the best payoff, even when she chooses not to kill Luke, and chooses the better path than Anakin didn't do, which is they kind of make that kind of like a mirror thing, but it didn't really work well, or didn't pay off as like they wanted to. I just felt like there was a lot of gaps that weren't filled up, or there was a lot of gaps that weren't put together well. Like it just a lot of things that were kind of left like untold or really addressed upon. Like for instance, the first episode, Obi-Wan was approached by a actual Jedi Knight for asking Obi-Wan for help, and Obi-Wan decided not to do anything about it. And I get the whole, because he kind of felt like he wasn't worthy of the Force, or the Force was kind of a letdown. He just basically threw a rough patch with the whole Force thing. But I feel like Obi-Wan really didn't have a redemption. I mean, yes, he finally is able to let go of the past, the things that happened in the past, and somewhat for Darth Vader as well. That's the only kind of mirrored correlation to that. But like, for me, I just felt like Obi-Wan didn't have much of a big redemption arc for him being, the man that created Darth Vader, the guy that essentially was a part of a Jedi Order system that let the Sith infiltrate the government or the council of, the whole, the Republic and everything, and the Jedi let that happen. That felt like there was no redemption for Obi-Wan for that matter. But with all that out the way, I really, really loved and enjoyed Darth Vader and Obi-Wan going at it again and seeing the full potential of Obi-Wan like we saw back in the prequels. It was like watching the prequels all over again, but actually, honestly, done way better. I mean, I love how the usage of the Force between Darth and Obi-Wan in this whole series, which is pretty cool. Because I felt like the prequels and even the originals, that's not even the sequels. They really don't go. They focus more on the lightsaber fights, but not the Force itself. Using the Force as a defense and also an attack tool for Sith. But in this episode, we really got to see the dark side and light side clash like it's supposed to be, and also that callback to the Rebels with Ahsoka and Darth Vader. Wow. 8.4 out of 10 for me.